Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unpacking AI and what that means for humanity. Previously, we were speaking about what that means for love. And today, I want to explore a little bit about what that means for healthcare, human dignity, life. And I want to talk about AI and its relationships with your healthcare and how that could potentially affect your loved ones and how that could affect families and society as a whole. And I wanted to start off with this very interesting quote. And it says, no, not a quote, but it's a line. And it's perilous to study too deeply the arts of the enemy. Now, this line comes from Tolkien's Palantir, and you might be thinking, okay, you started off with AI, healthcare. Palantir, what are we talking about today? Well, stick with me because today we are going to unpack what it means when healthcare becomes technology or when healthcare stops becoming human. And so I've been wondering what this has meant for society in terms of everything, right? First, love, then second, financially. We've seen the effects of how it affects people financially, how AI has displaced a lot of people in jobs. I love to explore what it means in love, but I also realize that AI is creeping into every aspect of human dignity, of human life. And when I came across this company, Palantir, and how it's very involved in military, which to be honest, I don't think I necessarily disagree with becoming more efficient, more technologically advanced when it comes to military, especially because you want cutting edge technology. I get that. You want to be able to have the best technology to protect yourself, especially because there are a number of countries out there who are, radically advancing and using cutting edge technology. And I think a lot of people sometimes don't necessarily mind technology in certain spaces, but when it starts deciding whether you get healthcare or health coverage or a procedure done that could be life saving or not, I think that's where some people want to draw the line. And I realize that I'm not the only one that has this concern. And if you have this concern, I share in your intuition. I do share in your intuition about what this could potentially mean for human beings. I mean, costs are rising, technology is accelerating, relationships are carrying more stress. And interestingly enough, in this case, it's relationship carrying stress because of healthcare, potential healthcare denials. And so when healthcare decisions are made by systems and not relationships, what changes? That's the question that I want to ask. And who pays the cost? Who's bearing the cost of this radical change? The other question that I also have is if progress improved life and is meant to improve life, then why does it also feel that so many more people are struggling instead of being helped by technology? Welcome to Pokes on Relationships. Here we speak everything relationships, and today we are speaking AI and its relationship with your healthcare. So, if you're trying to figure out how this plays out in healthcare claims and insurance, or whether you're going to be able to speak to a human at all, I understand. I get it because human beings have empathy, human beings have compassion. And if you're concerned about this, it's a legitimate concern because costs of living are increasing, and at the rate at which this tech speed is going, it leaves me questioning what this means for society. And I guess, because life is so fragile, life feels fragile, and to have it in an area where it just seems to be, to have AI and technology in an area where I think is probably one of the most fragile out of life, health is literally between life and death. Most people are in healthcare or have to go to hospitals most times for life saving procedures. And if we're having a machine or machines making decisions on whether you live or die based on a claim, I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like that's straddling, or that is crossing a boundary that I'm not quite prepared for. And outside of that, families are already struggling. Families are already going into financial debt, serious financial debt because of healthcare. Paying for healthcare, we know in the United States, is a very, very big thing. A lot of families have medical debt. And so, what does this mean? And I came across this video and I thought it was pretty interesting. It was from a channel that was discussing billionaire dystopia. But then the speaker that was speaking mentioned a very staggering statistic, and I had to pause. I had to pause and I was sad, but I do want to share that with you. So, here we go. This is the interview. And I wanted to play. Oh. Hold on while I sort this out. I don't know why it does this. Oh, there we go. Thank you for being patient with me. Here we go. I'll play it from
I
this
think it's gone
point.
too far. I think people are finally gagging on it. But we also have to acknowledge it's been a bit of a conscious choice in America. My father, who's an immigrant from Scotland, used to say, America is a terrible place to be stupid. And what I think he meant was, is America is a harsh place if you're unfortunate.
Yeah.
The social,
It's humiliating.
well,
The poor people are humiliated minute to minute in
40%
America.
of American households have medical debt. Can you imagine as
Yeah.
a dad?
Okay, so I want to just pause it there. I am going to continue to play things that were mentioned that, I mean, got me thinking. And truths, actually, harsh truths that we don't want to accept. America is a hard place to be in if you're stupid. And I think he framed it more correctly by saying, if you're unfortunate. I mean, that's true, but in comparison to what, right? Because there are definitely other nations who don't have some of the infrastructure that are put in place to also assist people who don't have as much. You know, we know that at least in the American system, that they do have, free medical care if you're below a particular threshold. They do, in some states, they do have assistance for food, for cash. In some states, they do have for cash. But I think the bar for that is very, very low. The majority of Americans are actually struggling and wouldn't even otherwise qualify for some of these benefits. And he mentioned that 40% of American households have medical debt. I want to repeat that part again because it was, I think it's interesting to have this conversation, and it's good to know about these things that are going on, because then it's not just information for you to just get it and think, oh no, to become very melancholic about it. No, it's just to say, okay, well, if this is where the world is going, and if this is how it could potentially affect me and my family financially, or in terms of medically as well, then how do I position myself in this potential fast coming dystopian society to make sure that I don't get left behind, right? But yes, to continue.
Humiliated minute to minute.
40% of American households have medical debt. Can you imagine as a dad, you have a 5-year-old stepson? Can you imagine, like, your kid is in screaming pain? You got to get him a root canal.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go into debt to get your kid a root canal. That's 40% of American households right now.
Wow.
It's just gone. I do believe in winners and losers. Capitalism is about huge rewards for the winners. There's got to be a floor, and the safety net has become way too porous. And in the most prosperous nation in the world, to have this sort of, we're the richest nation in the world, but if your wife gets lung cancer, there's a 1 in 3 chance that means you're going bankrupt. I mean, literally, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyways, we haven't elected enough people who.
Excuse me for the language. I did want to blur that out, but I wanted to share that with you.
Understand and have the backbone to have what I think is a truly progressive tax policy.
Okay, so I wanted to leave that video there. He's right. But again, the issue isn't necessarily whether the technology is bad, but is there a deeper structural issue going on in the United States that if you, and he mentioned it and he said it so perfectly. So if your wife gets lung cancer, you're going to go in debt. And now I think we're going to take it a layer further and, okay, you're going to have to go in debt. Plus that insurance company that you've been paying faithfully to every month, because you have to have health insurance in the United States, is going to deny your claim because of a particular glitch. Meanwhile, we know that medical attention is always time sensitive. It's time sensitive. And what was very interesting for me was realizing that the technologies that are actually working with insurance companies and AI that is working with insurance companies wasn't necessarily there to manage claims. What it was there for was to actually manage claim denials. I thought that was very fascinating. Why would you rather manage claim denials instead of trying to put systems in place to give people more insurance and to accept more claims? I thought that was quite bizarre. But I wanted to just dive deeper into this healthcare and insurance and AI and what is that going to look like? And what always helps me in understanding these is just thinking about stepping back, is thinking about looking at the systems and what's shaping the behaviors, right? Because Tolkien's Palantir, we know that Palantir, which I'm going to actually get into next, didn't lie. It showed selective truths. It was without context. And that's what drove wise men to ruins. That's what, and for example, the fact that it didn't show falsehoods, it only showed incomplete truths. It was enough to destroy judgment. And my issue is that modern systems are optimized for speed, efficiency, and not human stability. There's tech acceleration, economic pressure, and secularism also creeping into society, which definitely has a long-term effect on people and on families. And when systems are moving faster than human limits, families and people absorb the costs. And why did I mention Palantir? I mentioned Palantir because they are very instrumental right now in healthcare, in decisions that are affecting the nation's healthcare system. And I wanted to share this article with you. Let me zoom it out a little bit. Yes, it says Palantir selected for $90 million 5-year HSS contract vehicle. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and read just a little bit, just the first 2 paragraphs. It says, Palantir Technologies. Okay, so I'm not against government contracting. Again, I think if there are institutions and if there are places and organizations that can actually help our government become more efficient, I absolutely support that. Of course, I do always take issue with when systems that are supposed to be helping humans and supporting humans don't do that, that they rather become more about profit and they become more about efficiency and bottom line, and then sideline the very people that they were created to help in the first place. And so, for example, Palantir Technologies, a leading builder of operating systems, is used across the US government today. Right? So not just in one particular area of the United States government, it's used across multiple sectors within the government. And what does that mean? There are a lot of questions that come up after, out of this. Is Palantir going to own your information in healthcare? Is it also going to own your information in finances? What, like which government systems are we talking about here? We know, at least this one, we know it says it's been selected by the Department of Health and Human Services for its 5-year solutioning with holistic analytics, restructured for enterprise. It's a blanket purchase agreement. Okay, so they're going to work with the Health and Human Services, but we're also aware that they're working with the military. And then, okay, maybe eventually they're going to go work in health, in financial sectors. And then you're actually having a private company owning and having access to so many layers of your information. What happened to privacy? What happened to just, human beings being able to just live their lives as normal people without having this feeling of just being at the mercy or being vulnerable like this? Further, also, it says this 90 million BPA, that was the blanket purchase agreement there, will allow HHS officials across the departments, many agencies, and missions to select the Palantir's platform to support their work. Palantir's built-in data protection features, innovative technology, and common security framework were deemed well positioned to address critical technical needs across HHS. Okay, so this is in the healthcare sector. And I thought, okay, well, maybe that's in the healthcare sector. But then I decided to dig a little deeper and find out the history of Palantir and just what informs or who are the people creating this technology. And why I say that is outside of the people just coming up with in their minds even in the users' minds, brilliant technology, what I'm seeing more and more is them becoming influential in decision making and in directing the nation and where it's going. And outside, and not just that, we can see that with the AI dating, right, how it can start very quickly influencing and decide and already even knowing people's actions and what actions they're going to take even before they know it. We know that in the military aspect of it, it's to try and foresee a potential bad actor. But here is where the issue is. AI technology, just like the Palantir in the Tolkien's Palantir, is that it only selects half-truths. And so we've seen already technology falsely placing people in categories that they shouldn't be in, calling them criminals when they're not, AI technology glitches, putting people in problems when they didn't do anything. And if you have a technology that is so instrumental in a very key and important area of human life, which is healthcare, then what does that mean for society? And then I started realizing, okay, but what is the belief system of the people creating this technology? Because more and more we're seeing AI moving beyond product creation to becoming philosophy, ideals. And one of the founders of the Palantir company studied neoclassical theory. And you might think, okay, well, that's random. Neoclassical theory and healthcare system. Why should I care? Why should I worry? As long as I just get my claims or heard, or I get to speak to a human being, that's good. No, I think that it's more and more important to start to get to know the people behind the technologies that are created. What do they believe? What's driving them so much? Because their conviction and their belief system, believe it or not, plays itself out in the algorithms that are created. They play themselves out in the technologies that are created to design and to decide your future, or in this case, your healthcare decision. And so neoclassical theory, I just wanted to just share a brief definition of it, is neoclassical theory refers to perspectives that incorporate rational choice theory, suggesting that delinquent acts result from a rational cost-benefit analysis aimed at maximizing pleasure, avoiding pain, and while acknowledging the juvenile possesses free will and rationality to a lesser degree than adults. At least they recognize that, at least. It says this theory is also linked to deterrence theory, which posits that delinquency can be reduced through certain swift and severe punishment. Okay. Now, when I read that line, I said, bingo. That is why the founders of one of the founders is so besotted or so involved and very concerned about being able to catch bad actors very quickly and to punish them and to make a punishment swift. okay, I guess in the case of where a nation is in a fragile state and they are facing insecurity, that could be a very compelling technology to have. But it's not just that technology. This is a technology that is also being inputted in your decision in apps, in your healthcare decision making. And we can see that already it's being designed to not err in favor of humans, but it's rather designed, the algorithm is being created in order to be more of a deterrent. And when I noticed that, I'm like, oh, now I'm connecting the dots, right? That makes sense why insurance companies are rather using it to they're rather using it to manage denial claims. Because in my mind, I thought, wouldn't you rather use it to give people more claims? Wouldn't you rather use it to maybe help people fill in the gaps where they fill in a form incorrectly? But no, we are seeing neoclassical theory in real time in our healthcare decisions. And my concern, again, as I said, is when systems are moving faster than human limits, families and people absorb this cost. We know how frustrating it can be as a family, as a person who has a family member who's sick and needs urgent medical attention. Okay, it's not just the person who's not feeling well that is bearing the cost and the pain of going through this terrible life experience, but their families are involved. Their families that have to take care of them, their loved ones that are concerned of whether their parents are gonna, or their children or their loved one, it could even be a very good friend, is going to get this medical attention that they need. And so I think when I consider just AI and where it's going, especially in this healthcare, and especially seeing how very much we can see that it's becoming more punitive. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. AI and healthcare decisions are erring more on the side of punitive measures more than just positive, helping people to get more healthcare, which is when I hear founders of these companies speak, they position themselves as they want to help humanity. But how does that work if your technology is just more punitive than it is a blessing, I guess, for lack of a better word? Anyway, I have all these questions and I don't have all the answers, but I do have concerns, and I hope that other people are also just becoming more and more aware and also asking themselves the questions of, okay, well, if this is the case, what can we do? I think we can very easily also be able to start asking companies that we do want more human interactions. As I always say, strong relationships as a form of resistance. Because healthcare isn't just about outcomes, it's about trust, it's about continuity and human judgment. Okay. And I think that the lack of human interactions, especially in a very fragile experience or a very sensitive experience such as healthcare, can create a lot of frustration and pressures on people. And if we don't recognize that these pressures are being placed on us, or that we are experiencing these pressures, then we internalize them. And then relationships start to fracture and societies start to fracture. I think understanding this will give you options. It will make you realize that, okay, well, this is here and it's here to stay. But I don't have to be a victim. You don't need to blame yourself for wondering or for feeling that there's something a little bit off about just this AI bubble that we're in. But you can protect yourself. Okay, you can protect your relationships. You can become more intentional about the type of relationships you want to be in. You can build stability instead of being reactive. Okay, you can decide that you will build strong relationships with the people around you, and that you're going to take more interest in your insurance companies and start requesting just more human interaction. As I said earlier, perhaps this is a good thing. I think this AI is a good thing because I think it's forcing human beings to come full circle and to start demanding and looking more for human connection. Anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. I'm interested to find out what you think. If this resonates with you, stay with the channel as we unpack how life is just very fastly moving forward. Until next time.